Thank you. It's time for our game of Murder in the Dark. We are covering Oil, the second episode of The Young Ones. We are the old young ones. I am your host, John Clarke. This is my co-host, Howie Weingarten. How are you doing, El Presidente?
I'm fine. How are you?
Good.
Must you scream your introduction?
I'm good until we have the house meeting. That's when it all just turns around.
In the broom.
And coming from us, this is the first time she's been with us since the MCU review. Michele Sileo is here.
Hello.
Hey.
Hello, Michele.
Hello. Straight out of the broom closet.
Yeah. So we'll get into this
at
episode.
9 a.m.
This is the second episode of the season. This is an episode I noticed watching it again where a lot of the formula is more in place than the first episode, but some things are like way off. So
things just don't make any sense. And that's what makes it brilliant.
That's why I love it so much. And I thought after the first episode, we were going to say goodbye to the cutaways to the mice and things like that, because, you know, one of the mice got killed. So we thought, but then no, now we're talking to all kinds of creatures and not even animals, but also inanimate objects. That didn't happen in the first episode.
Magical creatures with wind chimes, apparently.
Yes.
That's how you know it's true. She's speaking the truth.
No, the puppets are going to continue, and I have
puppets get worse.
I have a very big problem with the puppets. There's like disgusting peas in this episode that are puppets.
Oh, I was the broom to me, and the cleaning objects.
The broom has one tooth.
But weren't the peas in the ashtray?
Yeah, the peas were like next to a dirty cigarette. It's like it's always like.
I like the effort to try to make them to scale. You know,
they were not made to scale. They were like gobstopper peas.
But the cigarette butt was tremendous next to these peas. You know, what are we trying to do?
Put the peas in the cigarette. That's us.
Just suck on these peas. Yeah.
And could you imagine the meeting like
apples?
The cigarette has to be bigger, otherwise it's not real.
I don't think there was ever a conversation of the young ones where somebody said, otherwise it's not real.
No.
There is a sketch in this episode that makes no sense.
It's about 4 or 5 that make no sense.
Yeah. So we'll get into it. This is the first episode of the main house. For some reason, the pilot has a completely different house that they destroy. And usually what you think was, oh, that was the pilot. And then they came back a year later and they were like, let's redesign the house. But no, the BBC said you have 6 episodes. And they were like, all right, we'll build a house for the first one, knock it down. And then we'll use another house for the rest of the series.
Well planned.
Hey, really?
Yeah. Yeah, they knocked the house down. In TV logic, you could just say, oh, we got another house that looks the same.
There was an explosion,
it's a totally different layout.
And what's interesting, things explode all the time and then are sort of mysteriously replaced.
Yeah.
So they could have just started again in the same house the way that they mysteriously replace everything.
This show could easily have an explosion counter.
Yeah. There are two two explosions for no reason in this. And also these shows have no endings. Not a single. We're 2 in, no ending.
Just end. We've run out of film. That's it. End it.
Yeah, the first one seemed like they were dead. But then they're fine in the next one. This one, they just give up on the plot. But we'll get to that as we go through. The house in this one, I was surprised, is pretty clean.
At first.
Yeah, but it's like,
give them time.
Even for a set, like the refrigerator was like looked new.
I love the teapot.
The teapot, no.
Yeah.
That was dirty.
Over, and then that was over that plot. That plot point, right? There's a genie, and then there's not. Over.
Who gets burned to death?
Well, there's Buddy Holly, and then there's not. Like
Buddy.
Well, I noticed as soon as the episode starts, Buddy Holly is playing in the background.
Yeah,
so
I thought that was the musical guest.
Yeah. Yeah. There are 2 musical guests in this episode. Neither one is really a musical guest.
It's like, who are these people?
But then after this, they wind up featuring for no reason musical guests.
Yeah, but there's a musical guest in the first one which is the most British band we have ever seen.
Less than zero or something?
Yeah, less 9 below 0. They have skinny ties and terrible teeth.
Very.
Oh, that's a prerequisite.
And they're kind of shouty, and one guy's playing a harmonica, and I love them. This one
We
has
differ on
a
that.
guy playing Buddy Holly.
Yeah.
And then Radical Posture, which
Poorly.
I'm still not sure is a band.
It's not a band.
I don't think, no, they couldn't be.
I've done a little bit of research. It's not a band.
Okay,
And
they were credited at the end.
It's not a band.
I wanted it to be a band because I thought that the song was great. And then
the Doc Martens.
Yeah, the Doc Martens song I thought was fantastic. And I thought, oh, this is definitely because they feature a musical band, a musical band in each episode. So
Yeah.
So I Googled the band, doesn't exist. Only that episode of The Young Ones comes up. And then I was like, well, maybe they covered the song. So I Googled the song and it links back to the band that links back to The Young Ones. So I'm like, I guess the whole thing was made up.
Wow, you did a lot of research on this.
This time I did my homework.
You did your homework.
And I watched this episode twice, and I'll tell you about Buddy Holly and that song. Yes, I did.
Which is the least Buddy Holly sounding song I've ever heard.
Which
is like
Buddy
a
Holly was
crazy
to
amount
be
of reverb. It's like an Iggy Pop song.
So you're 100% making my point for me right now. Right?
Okay, go ahead.
Because he starts playing what's supposed to be a Buddy Holly song, and I'm like, I'm just going to fast forward this. Except I wind up listening to it. I'm like, this isn't bad at all. Like, this is a pretty good song. Oh, and then he just falls through the ceiling and breaks his neck. I'm like, okay, never mind. The second time I watch it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. Buddy Holly's going to appear, and I'm just going to fast forward the song. And then I big fat did not again the second time because it's a really good song.
It's a song about eating bugs.
Yes, that's
all right.
Quiet. It was fantastic. And it really sounded like an Iggy Pop song. I was like, this sounds like awesome, like a really cool punk song.
Yeah.
I could listen.
And any show, I mean, any show would be like, that's the plot, is that they move into the house and Buddy Holly's in there. And you can go anywhere you want with it, but that's the plot. But he's dead in 5 minutes. Even though he's been hanging from the ceiling for 20 years.
Yes.
He doesn't get through the song without falling for no real reason.
No, and Mike doesn't do anything to help the situation.
No.
So
he steals the guitar.
He does ask those guys if he can keep an eye on his buddy.
Oh, yeah.
Which I thought was a great line. Brilliant. That was just, and even like Mike breaks the wall for like twice in that episode.
Yeah.
He's like, what? Well, that's not funny, something to that effect.
He asked him for a caption when it's like, Mike,
exactly.
New room.
That was.
Oh, I got to tell you, like that first scene when they come. First of all, when they walk into the house with the garbage bags, it's like I have stuff in my garage in garbage bags, and I'm like, oh shit, I'm like the Young Ones. And then,
well, what I loved was Vivian. Vivian was carrying a garbage bag and a skeleton.
Yeah,
he's
a med student though.
That's why. So he has a skeleton. The first episode, he had a leg.
But I thought
he has a full skeleton.
He's got, at least now he's got the full skeleton.
Yeah.
What I thought was great with this second episode, is that like they really showed like they are a completely dysfunctional family. You could see who's mom, who's dad, brother and sister, the fighting in the, no, this is your room. No, it's not my room. It's my room because my clothes are here. Well, they're not here. And it's just like, I was just like, wow. It was just, I loved it. Loved it.
I loved how that, I mean, I didn't realize this till recently. And I'm seeing it every time now, is that Rick and Aid are such a slapstick team. Where it's like, no matter what scene they go into, it will go into slapstick. But I love that they escalated by setting the bed on fire.
Oh, and then they immediately get the same exact idea at the exact same time.
Yeah.
I go scream, Neil, your bed's on fire.
Yeah. They are.
Oh.
This might be the most abusive episode for Niel out of any of them.
Oh,
like,
he gets whacked around.
People hit him. And I'm like, most episodes, they just say that they don't care about him. And then he feels bad for himself. And then they order him around. This episode, they're hitting him a lot.
And it's legit hits. Like they're really hitting him.
Yeah.
And then incidentally, when the stove explodes,
for no reason.
They do it for no reason. And they do that slow motion explosion. Oh my God. Rick is like, legit surprised.
It looks like an explosion because it was slow motion. I feel like it went off at the wrong time and they didn't have the right coverage. So they were like, this is all the footage we have of this explosion.
It's a one-time thing.
Yeah, and they were just like, forget it, because he looks legitimately surprised and taken off guard and 100% too close to the stove when it happened.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
They were very grateful that he didn't really get hurt.
It's like there's the clip of the Who on the Smothers Brothers in the 60s where it's at the beginning of The Kids Are All Right and they play like My Generation, and at the end they put explosives in the kick drum.
Yes.
But the guys working the crew thought it would be funny to put twice as much. And it like you can see in the show it knocks everybody back and it knocks the camera back.
Yes.
And I know. Pete Townsend said that was half of his hearing right there.
Yes.
I feel like that's what happened with that stove.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It was almost like the end of the final Black Adder, where they had that one scene where they're supposed to run into no man's land. It's like they had like one shot of it. Yeah. And Rowan Atkinson was just like, we're not doing this again because you almost deafened the whole cast.
Yeah.
So they had to.
So they just kept rerunning it in slow motion.
Yeah.
Different angle. Yeah.
Use slow motion.
Instead of like, don't use the explosion. That doesn't make sense. Right? Like,
it doesn't. It doesn't.
It just doesn't. You're right. Instead of that's the choice is use the explosion, but in slow motion rather than cut the explosion that doesn't make sense in the story.
Yeah.
There's the logic. And I'll say the thing that becomes like super endearing and familiar, and I mean the word familiar in the family sense, like is that
familial,
right? It feels like the Muppet Show.
Yes.
Right?
There's a moment, it's later in the episode, but when Vivian is wearing the helmet when he's hitting them, and when and he's just like repeating what Mike is saying, where and he leans over and goes, ha ha. I'm like, he's just animal.
Yes. He's just animal. And even like the chaotic nature of everything that goes on and the unexpectedness and the fourth wall breakingness, all of it, it's all the Muppet Show.
Yeah, it is.
So am I, by the way. My entire personality could be traced back to the Muppet Show.
That kind of stuff doesn't happen anymore. We don't have that kind of humor anymore. I think it's very vaudevillian, and why we kind of all grew up loving it. But comedy has developed and evolved, and it's a little bit more sophisticated now, I guess. But I really do miss the chaos of all that stuff, and that is definitely why I fell in love with it, because it reminded me so much of that stuff, of the Roadrunner and of just chaos for no reason.
It's okay, guys. It's okay. It was bound to happen sooner or later.
The explosion?
Yeah.
No, when he gets the axe in the back of the head.
Oh, yeah, the pickaxe.
That is my favorite line.
Completely backwards.
That is my favorite line.
He would never be this kind, right?
Yeah.
That's the calmest he's ever been. Ever. In the whole series.
That's why
the whole series.
Yes, he's never that kind again.
He's like,
guys,
it's okay.
It's bound to happen. It's so awesome.
It's later in the episode, but it's through the helmet, through his head, and it's got a chunk of floor.
Yeah, it does.
And then if you stay to the end, after the credits, he gets up.
Yeah,
it's fantastic.
Yeah,
it's a complete lie.
But going with the chronology of the episode, at the point. The first real diversion after the Buddy Holly. Oh, and by the way, when Mike is setting up his room, it's a very telling moment, because he's spreading women's underwear around and he has a tape of himself going, "Oh, Mike, oh." Yeah, it's like for some reason he wants the guys to think he's the successful ladies' man, but no one's coming in there.
No.
So it's like he seems like detached from the others, that he doesn't care what he thinks. Then why would he build his entire persona where it's the first thing he unpacks?
When I was a kid, I thought he was like like a 5-0, like a secret agent in a 21 Jump Street.
I think he is like 5'0", maybe 5'1".
5'1", 5'0". Yeah, I thought that he was like part of the police and he was like undercover, but doing a very bad job of it because he was the only one that had sort of a buttoned up appearance.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But a small bit of research. He allegedly, he's supposed to be like a business major, but who it's understood that he's like bribed a lot of his or blackmailed a lot of his investors. So I don't know necessarily why that translates into his being so sketch and so buttoned up and with all of these, like, why does he have a roller disco like ready to go with a bouncer?
It's a new business plan. Yeah,
it's in his business plan. Okay,
you know,
fantastic.
Yeah, 4 guys in there dancing. I was just like, hey, it's making money. You know, it's just
and that's a weird. The thing that always threw me about the roller disco scene, and it's a scene where Rick's trying to go into his room, but Mike's already sold it as a roller disco, and he has to pay to get in. And when he gets in there are just 4 people.
Yeah,
and they're super into being in the roller disco. And I'm like, where do you find the people that wanted to pay to roller skate around a bedroom? And the one guy's gigantic. He's like Terry Crews. And he's like, strut your stuff, bug off.
They are so good at the roller disco, by the way.
You know, the roller disco is a lost art.
I would say so, right?
It is, for sure.
And I noticed some jerks on the street who strapped on some roller skates. Like, they found some people that could really skate.
They could really do it.
Yeah. Well, back then, I think everyone roller skated. It was just like, well,
roller rinks were a big thing.
Roller rinks were a big thing back then. Yeah. So
that's where you had your pizza party. And that's why you missed the Muppet Show.
Yes. Were you having a pizza party?
Yeah, because they had the pizza party roller rink.
Yay. Can we do that?
Yes, but we're in 3 different places. You can have pizza whenever you want on this show.
So that happens in adulthood.
Yeah, but I did notice. Notice this time, as soon as Rick enters the roller disco, Robbie Coltrane's in the corner and he's reading a magazine, and he looks up because he's just a suspicious bouncer.
I just love that.
His immediate thing is like
Robbie Coltrane.
I had no
the fact that they have Robbie Coltrane there.
Robbie Coltrane appears a few times.
A couple times,
comes back in the 2nd season, and he appears in Black Matter a lot. And it's like a lot of people. A lot of people don't know that Robbie Coltrane was around a lot in Britain before Harry Potter.
Forget that Harry Potter stuff.
Well, it's like Hugh Laurie. People didn't realize Hugh Laurie was around before House.
Right.
House.
So then Rick does he ever get back in his bedroom?
No, he moves into Neil's room. And then he says,
he puts Niel out, and then, poor Niel, my poor Neely.
The one bit of joy we passed over that Niel has is when the genie appears. First of all, nobody sees the genie because everyone walks right past the genie and is talking to him. And there's a big guy like this. It's not like they show that he's invisible or he's an effect. There's just
he's right there.
No, he goes back into the tea kettle, doesn't he?
Yeah, but he's
gets burned alive.
Like, everybody comes down there. Yeah, but I do love the 6 pairs of hands.
6 pairs of hands is great because
he's so happy.
He's so happy.
In that moment, yeah,
he's not horrified at all.
He's like, "Whoa, got 6 pairs of hands."
And he got.
I gotta show Rick
right away. He wasted his wishes.
Yeah.
By the time he realized that that's why he has 6 hands, that's his 3rd wish, and he's done.
Well, that's the thing. It doesn't even occur to him why he's getting the wishes because that's 2 wishes. And then Vivian burns the genie alive.
He doesn't even care.
Whoops.
What then?
You know? Well. Neil never wins.
Poor Neil.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
He hasn't even done the dinner yet. Or he's wrecked the tea now.
You know?
This is also the one where he gives him till 3 to make dinner. You know what I love about him is he just keeps running back and forth across the rug to count.
Yes.
You know?
He goes 1, and he runs back to 2.
I know. Well, the funny thing is, like, the funny thing is that, like, after making the dinner, I love the fact that they all sit down. Well, not Mike, because Mike's always off on his own thing. But what I love is that they sit down to watch TV together.
It's a quiet scene.
Yeah,
it's a quiet scene, but I think it's hysterical. They're like, "What are you watching?" the little white dot.
All right, tape it for
You
me.
know.
Maybe
Yeah, I wish we had a video. I could watch it tomorrow. And I love Neil's line. He goes, I think it's a sign. It says, no more TV. Go to bed. And I thought this was the episode where the guy comes on and says, go to bed, Spotty.
Yes.
But that's going to be in a later episode.
No,
That's
it's
another one.
this one as well. He says, it's time to go to bed.
No, but there's another episode coming up where this happens again. But then like one of the guards for the palace shows up with the big hat.
Yep.
He just yells, go to bed, Spotty at Rick.
When it's like, I have very distinct scenes that I remember from episodes. Like, again, I didn't get the way that I got to see it was in the late 80s. And my older brother came back from being away at college with the VHS tape. And his girlfriend's mother and little sister were heavy into the show. And he would bring it home for us to watch. So I have these very vague memories of it. And I distinctly remember like immediately falling in love because I didn't make the connection then that it was just like the Muppets, but they were so endearing and lovable, these lunatics, you know? And then I remember like distinct scenes. I remember that scene about the British guard coming in, screaming at everybody. I remember a scene for no reason, the door explodes and Rick goes, great. The doors exploded, like for no reason, like great
the
now.
Quintessential young one's line, in my opinion.
Yep.
Right. Like overstating, like stating the obvious has to be, again, one of my favorite jokes to make, or like really stretching out things that don't need explanation, like over and over again. I was just listening to, was it Jim? Who's the SNL writer, John? Jim, was it Norton? Around the time of Bill
Jim
Murray.
Jim Downey.
Yeah,
Jim Downey. Jim Downey wrote like Weekend Update for decades.
And he wrote Change Bank. Do you remember this?
Yes.
And
no.
You remember this sketch, Howie?
Oh God.
I don't.
It's around it's like the Phil Hartman, Dana Carvey era. And it's a fake commercial.
The idea is a fake commercial for a fake bank, and the bank's purpose is to just make change. They make change. Okay. So if you're gonna come in, break a 10, we'll give you 2 5s. Or we'll give you 10 ones, but we're not going to give you 5 1s and a 5 if that's not what you want. And then the whole
and it's in that like very ultra serious, like late 80s with the textured backgrounds.
Yeah.
No, at the 45-degree angle. And it was like, and then they cut to like,
I'll have to check this out.
And he's like, I had $1 bill, but all I really needed was 3 quarters. Well, they gave me those 3 quarters and 2 dimes and a nickel. And it's played like that.
Wow.
Quiet.
I would probably love that.
It never gets any higher than that.
It's so cringy, obvious, and over-explaining, and it's so great. They squeeze every drop out of that fruit, and it's the same thing with like big giant explosion. Oh, great! The door exploded.
Yeah,
like that.
Now in this episode, when Mike brings Buddy Holly's corpse downstairs, this is where we get one of our cutaway sketches. And we had one, the first episode, it was the 2 old people warming themselves by the light bulb. And then and it's the Russian novel. This one I feel like has even less to do because it's just these 2 middle-aged guys
in a basement.
They think they're on a raft, but they're in the basement of the young one's house.
They're hallucinating and they think this is their holiday or something like that.
Yeah.
And for some reason, this sketch annoys me because it's like,
really?
Because there's no connection to anything. It's like, I don't know why they're in the young one's house. It's a hat on a hat because it's weird enough that 2 middle-aged guys live in their basement and are staring up at the light bulb, but then they also are hallucinating that they're lost at sea. And then he gets up and opens the door in the basement. And looks out onto the sea and comes back.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And it just it keeps going and it kind of drags and it's like
it drags a little bit. It drags a little bit.
Like I don't know where it's going, and I don't know. I mean, I'm not supposed to know why things happen, but I don't know what the point of that was.
This show has no why.
But it doesn't really elevate the comedy in any way. It's like
no, it's a low, I guess.
Yeah, I feel like it slows things down in the way that the TV scene doesn't, because this TV scene is at least about the main characters.
Right. Okay.
You know, and it has one-liners.
Misplaced enough that I went back to the first episode to make sure I didn't miss them.
Yeah, no, they're just only in that one sketch, and when they go back down to the basement, they're not there.
Yeah. So which is
the
fine.
oil is.
I'll forgive that, but then why were they there to begin with? And you're right, it's not necessarily that funny. It's not as funny as the peas, as disgusting as they are.
Or the brooms. Yeah, you're right.
Or the brooms.
Brooms
I really thought that this was going to be some kind of carryover from the first. Like, were they drunks that got lost in the house?
But that's the thing. I just needed like one more connection back into the plot. Like, why are they? Why? Because the premise of like there's just two middle-aged guys living down there and that's their vacation. That's far enough. But then the hallucination thing, it's like, okay, I need another tie back to why these guys are in the young one's house. And who are they? And where did they come from? And it's like, usually I'm fine with that. Like the old Russian people, they're the neighbors. You know, that's all I need. This, I feel like there's no connection to the rest of it.
Right. And I would forgive it if it was funny. But
yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe it's just because it doesn't land.
Yeah.
It's well, you know what? You know, you throw it up there, you see what sticks. And they were probably like, you know what? Hey, we got to fill another minute. So, hey.
No, we don't have commercials.
We don't have commercials. So let's just two guys hallucinating in our basement.
Oh, here's
all right.
A standard running time, speaking of that, because
they're all about 30 even.
When I look on the YouTubes, 43, 42 minutes, 47.
Really? That long?
Am I losing my mind?
I don't know.
Hold on.
I thought they were 32, 34. 32,
right.
34.
I'm losing my mind.
That's okay.
I'm gonna check on that. You discuss amongst yourselves.
Okay. Discuss amongst yourselves.
Going back to the TV scene, the one thing that really struck me when they said like unplug your TV during the night or it will blow up, and I'm like, is that an early 80s British thing? Because TVs used to get hot, or
I don't know.
Like, is that like just a young one's thing? Because I feel like if it was a young one's thing, it would have actually blown up.
That's what I was expecting as well. I thought, they're setting us up, but there is no setup. There is no traditional anything about this.
Nope.
Yeah, I feel like if they were saying turn your TV off during the night, if that was like a public service announcement, there's the joke. But it doesn't, and he just gets bored. And then he said, I'm gonna go play Murder in the Dark, which I'm not sure was a game, but there is actually a link on the Wikipedia page to Murder in the Dark, which says it's a party game in which a secretly selected player is able to kill others by winking at them.
Yes.
While the surviving players try to identify the killer. So it's like it's like Mafia or you know.
Right. But he goes in there with a real axe to do it.
But he gets an axe and then goes down to the basement where no one is.
You know?
But if he's playing with himself, who the hell is he winking at either? Like, that's the other piece.
I think he went down there and just started swinging an axe around.
I guess.
I think that's what he – yeah. You know? One of my favorite lines is when Niel says – I think Rick says to him, well, why don't you go to sleep? He goes, can't go to sleep. You know, sleep gives you cancer. It was just like, what the fuck did you just say?
I wrote that one down. Sleep gives you cancer. Everyone knows that.
Yeah, that's it. Everyone. It's common knowledge.
That's it's so perfect.
The show is hysterical. I mean, the thing is that, you know, even and the thing is that like sometimes they're like just going and then they stop. And you see a full screen 9 a.m. meeting in the downstairs. That what was that called? The
broom closet.
Help me out. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, but the stop is before
house meeting.
Because the stop is in the scene. It's like Rick and Niel in Niel's bedroom, and then Vivian just walks in and says, "I found oil," which comes out of nowhere. Right. It's 19 minutes in, and now that is what the episode is about.
The episode's about that, and it took 19 minutes to get to it.
Well, I feel like it's like two episodes put together. Like there was a Buddy Holly episode and an Hoyle episode, and they just like put them together. And when they were done talking about one, they just started talking about the other one. I
mean, I love this episode. I will admit, it's a little disjointed. There's a few things in it that it's just kind of like, okay, I love the show. I'm going to forgive that, but there's when he sneezes and the door explodes from the broom closet,
Yes.
And then it was just like all of a sudden now that was an assassination attempt, and here comes El Presidente with his like right hand man.
At that point,
it is just like if there's any type of humor that I love, it's stream of consciousness that just makes no sense. I remember telling John stories on the phone when we were in college that made no sense. They were connected
tell
by
me about your
theme.
Dreams.
Yeah, well, those are some of the best ideas I've ever had for like comedy.
That's like
what
trying
the fuck is going on in my mind?
Curb Your Enthusiasm episode.
Yeah,
the one thing that pulls the whole episode.
The one thing that pulls everything together. Yep.
And this does not have that. That's what it is. There's no through line. It's just like we're doing this for a while. We're gonna just stop doing it. We're gonna do this other thing for a while.
You know,
it's almost, it's almost like it's like a Beavis and Butthead, where it's like 11 minutes, stop, start another one.
But didn't you find that The Simpsons did that too? Like where the whole front of the episode is about something sort of different about than what, and Bob's Burgers as well. Like you never know where things are going to go from the
there's always that first 5 minutes, but then there's always like some tenuous connection.
Yes. Yep.
I was just watching an old Simpsons. It was about area codes, but the first 5 minutes was there was a wild badger in the doghouse. And then so there's like 5 minutes of trying to stop this badger, which is mauling Homer. And then he calls animal control, but it's the wrong area code. And now it's about area codes.
That's what it's about.
Oh my god.
But what's great about that is he's on the phone in the kitchen, and the badger comes up with the window, goes, and he goes, "Get out of here! We're done with you now." The badger just walks away, and that's it.
Perfect.
Letting everybody know that they know.
Yeah. I do love the argument that Rick and Neil have in the broom closet, though. After the puppets, where he's like Neil's so indignant, and he's like, how come I've never been in this room? He goes, because it has cleaning supplies. He goes, no, because we moved in yesterday. And I'm like, oh, there's actual logic.
Yeah. And then he's like, I'm sneezing because it's so dusty. And then Rick is like, that shows you how good you are cleaning the house. If you did your job, it wouldn't be so dusty in here.
You know?
Yeah. And again, an explosion. And this explosion is not in slow motion, which again makes me think that the first one fucked up.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I just love. It's funny because it's like this show to me is like when a band has a song, right? And writes, oh, this is a good part to a song, and this is another good part to a song. It's just like, well, how do we make it? Just glue this song all together, just like there's a great piano part. Well, now there's a great guitar solo. How do we, it's like I dare say the November rain of the of an episode. You've got all these great parts that are just like
link it with an explosion.
Yeah,
there you go.
That's what Guns N' Roses
or in November
needed.
Rain's case, a wedding in the rain and somebody jumps through a cake.
And they needed an explosion.
That was the guy jumping through the cake. That was their
explosion.
Every good wedding needs an explosion.
That's how you get the party.
Maybe that's why my marriage didn't last.
We're going to end with a big explosion.
I was right by the bean. I could have blown up the bean.
Oh my God.
I think that the idea that they are in college, right, in the late 80s, right? Because
early 80s, actually.
Early.
Was it the early 80s? Yes, right. Oh, by the way, yes, 82 to 84.
Yeah, it came to America in the late 80s.
Right. And by the way, 31 to about 37 minutes for each episode.
Okay.
So completely wrong.
That makes sense.
Oh my God, you're our fact checker. I love it.
I'm trying.
Yeah.
But I think that they were trying to be anarchists, and everybody against them are fascists, right?
Yeah, so the fascist is the first insult you can use against
the best and most British, and for the era, best insult you.
Well, it's the era of Thatcher too, so people are pretty pissed.
Yes,
and this is when we were talking about this in the beginning, actually in our preview episode. I always consider this to be like the world's first punk sitcom, because it comes out of that time of England, and it's all about thumbing your nose at the establishment. It's all about making it's all about not even just making fun, but attacking the societal norms, and in this one it's like attacking government and the way families are set up. Like
and they'll do it more.
Some of them just attack television.
Which was the point I was going to make, which is that's why things are so disjointed and a mess. We're not going to have our show make sense for you fascists. It's not going to be a linear experience at all. And it's
like a punk song. It's very loud, very fast, and then they're done and they're on to another thing.
Yes.
This is not Three's Company.
Yes.
Why the episodes end as abruptly as they do. Over. Done.
Right.
You know, I love that.
But like I love everything turns on a dime where like as soon as Mike finds out about the oil, he's just become a fascist.
I love that coat he's wearing.
Yes.
With that hat.
Yes. It's a pretty cool outfit. And then Vivian has that motorcycle helmet.
Oh my God.
And the cricket bat.
Why do you think Mike was dressed that way?
Because that was his idea of a dictator.
You know? Oh my God. Oh my God. That one sketch when they're like when he tries to explain, where he's just like, listen, if I go to see King Fahd, right? I gotta have oil on my shirt. Hey, how am I gonna explain that to him?
He'll chop my hands off.
He'll chop my hands off, you know. And then they said something around the oh God, help me with the joke. Where they say they have that dream with the two Arab kings or something.
Oh, with the thought balloon cutaway.
Yes.
I love that because
that's hysterical. They have
so many cutaways, but this one's all in a thought bubble. He's like, the revolutionaries are here. Show them to me. Which bit of them would you like to see? It's a good joke. The best joke in that scene, though, is when Rick gets hit in the balls with a cricket bat and says, "Ha ha, missed both my legs."
Missed both my legs. What a great joke!
It's perfect.
My God.
There are some really good, solid one-liners in here, which isn't always the case.
You're right. That was great. Not what I expected at all. Totally just knocked me over. That was such a great joke. And again, like Neil gets it.
Of course.
Neil gets it really hard on the head.
He just
I
gets
don't
it all the time.
Him getting hit as much as he is in this episode.
It really does.
There is a point in this episode where you hear the audience go, "Aw," about Neil. And it's like, I feel like they went a step too far if the audience is now feeling sorry for Neil.
I think it happened more than once, actually.
Yeah, there's an audible and I don't know what this was. I mean, this was shot on videotape on sets. Was this a live studio audience?
I doubt it.
I have not been able to find it from the research. So which means that they then in the editing they knew that they were going too far. We're like, let's put an awe in for Neil.
That's pretty funny,
right?
That is funny.
Yeah.
Oh, we meant to feel bad for Neil?
I don't know, because like there's a lot of Neil brings on himself because he is like self-pitying and whiny.
And they definitely regard him as like a crybaby, but they call him a hippie, right? So So now this is where maybe intellectualizing this, right? So there are the anarchist punks who are rebelling against the Thatcher boomers, right? But in some sense, their parents are hippies. If you think about it.
Yeah, I feel like at that point, the hippies are just the kind of, they're like goths. They're just people that didn't stop being that way when it stopped being fashionable. Because we're only like 10 years away. You know, we were early 80s. So we're like 10, 12 years away from the 60s.
Right.
So I don't think it's their parents as much as like their older siblings. Because remember, in the early 80s, all these guys they're like late boomers. They're not quite Gen Xers.
You're right.
Because we're all Gen Xers and we were like 8, 10 when these aired.
Yes.
So this is like boomers attacking boomers.
Yeah, this was the piece that I just couldn't understand because my parents are, I guess, hippies, for lack of a better word, more working class kind of hippies, if such thing can exist.
Your dad's a comic book artist. I think that gives him some.
My dad's a comic book artist, right? So he's definitely on the liberal side, which always confuses me about why his generation, the boomer generation, is so conservative because they were the hippies, right?
Right.
So that whole thing kind of confuses me, which is what I tried to bring to this, where I was just like, why are they mad at, or do they regard Neil as like a whiny crybaby as the foil to the other thing that they're rebelling against, which is like the Thatcherisms?
Yeah, right? I think what it is because of the punk sensibilities, because they're angry and aggressive, that they have no respect for the passivity of hippies.
Aha!
That
Good
they
one.
just feel like they're just lazy and
whiny
and victims. Yeah, because Neil
never stands up for himself. Neil never stands up for himself.
No, and that's because hippies were way too like high to be active.
You know, I mean, there is one time where he stands up for himself later in the series I can think of that was pretty goddamn funny.
I think we're
from an MC, especially from the MCU point of view.
Yeah.
The thing is that like, there's you know, like what you just said. I just think that there's a point where it's just like they're just pissed off at everyone and the establishment, the people who whatever, the older generation, it doesn't matter.
And remember, there's no one to root for.
Right.
Because Rick is the most irritating character, and he's the most.
Oh, you think?
He's the most leftist punk, and Vivian's this weird blend of like punk, but his jacket says very metal, and he's got spikes on it, so it's like it's very confused whether he's actually a metalhead or into punk. And
that's what I always thought.
That Venn diagram are binoculars. There's nobody equally into the Clash and Judas Priest.
Being a metalhead back in the 80s, they're just like, oh, I love this Vivian. Oh, is he a punk? Is he a metalhead? Yeah. Well, I assume he's a metalhead because he's got very metal written on the back of his jacket. So,
but he's about anarchy and destruction, and at that point, metal is about demons.
Yeah,
Ozzy.
He's got slugs in his head, like that makes him punk.
That makes him punk. You're right.
Yeah.
But the only guy who I can think that they have some sort of respect for, and why this is, I'm not sure, is the Alexi Sayle character. They seem to have
on the character he is, because when he's the landlord, they have no respect for him.
Well, in this episode, it looked like Rick wanted to have respect for him, and then all of a sudden he just lost it because he was just kind of like the look on his face, like when he was doing the Doc Martin song, was like, "What the fuck are you singing?"
By the way, getting to that, the concert is Alexi. Alexi Sayle is very polarizing with me. I think some episodes he's good, and some episodes he's irritating. I think
which one was he now?
This is my favorite Alexi Sayle performance.
Really,
I love how when he talks to the audience, he's acting like he's at a huge outdoor festival, and he keeps going, "Woo!"
Yes,
I love that he acts like. Acts like he's addressing this huge, and I love the Dr. Martin's boots. Which is funny because this is one of those generational things where I said, you discovered this in the late 80s, Michelle. Howie and I discovered it in the early 90s, and in grunge, everyone was still wearing Doc Martin boots.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like a timely thing. It was like I had Costco Timberlands because I couldn't afford Doc Martens. I bought my first pair of Doc Martens a year ago.
I nailed cardboard to the bottom of my feet.
and wrote Doc
Martin. D&M.
Bought mine at Fabco and used a yellow highlighter to change the color of the stitching from white to yellow.
Wow.
That's detail oriented.
That's nice.
I like that Rick really did struggle, though, about really respecting him or like shitting on him.
Well, he was so excited that they were holding the concert, and then Alexi Sayle just asked him for money, and then
give me money. And that's why he lost the respect. I think it's all about the money.
I think so. And that also turned into another Neil abuse scene where he's like, "Where's my 200 quid?" And Neil comes in and sits down. He's like, "Did you buy a ticket?" And he's like, "No, I'm the oppressed workers." He's like,
"Yes."
Well, they cost 200 quid.
I got 5 pence.
And he's like, "I got 5 pence."
It's like a nickel.
That's nice. We're here to raise funds for you.
You don't even care.
You don't even care.
That is the genius of the young ones there.
Yeah.
That turnaround of beating up the person that you say you're helping and taking more advantage of them.
Which is probably what they thought of what the establishment was doing, all along with, Thatcher.
Well, there were a lot of benefit concerts at that point. It's like the US festivals around there. It's pretty Live Aid, but there were a lot of those benefit concerts.
That was pretty funny.
Fact checking again.
And for some reason, when Alexi Sayle starts to introduce the song, he takes a big shit on Ebony and Ivory for some reason.
I know.
Yeah.
And this whole bit about It's like about racism on pianos.
So this is November of '82.
Was
that it originally aired? So how close in time are we to Ebony and Ivory being?
Ebony and Ivory was definitely '82. I feel like it was like a summer of '82 song. I feel like Ebony and Ivory was on the radio a lot when E.T. was in movie theaters.
March 20th, 1982. Wow.
E.T. Fairfax.
This is Ebony and Ivory's release date. So by this point, how many months later, I guess everybody's goddamn sick of it.
It ran for a long time. You could get a hit song at least going for 6 months back then.
For sure.
You know, how long was Billie Jean on the radio?
Billie Jean.
Too long. I still can't get away from it.
There you go. Now it's in your head right now.
No,
that's right.
Not.
Yes, my lover. She's just a girl.
Right now.
He's going to keep singing it.
It's not going to take hold.
Yeah. That's all I know. That's the end of the song.
And this is the end of the episode because he's like, when Rick complains, he goes, "It's like Devil Woman had never been written." And part of my research for this show is I asked Spotify to start playing me Cliff Richard. And Devil Woman is a Cliff Richard song.
Wow.
And it's terrible.
Well, can't win them all.
And that's when it just ends. It just goes to the credits.
Oh, one thing before the credits.
Yeah.
With I was actually wondering because I see Alexi Sayle dancing, and he seems to be like sort of a rotund figure.
Yes.
And I was just like is he really doing those? Is he doing those dance steps himself? And you know what? Lo and behold, I give him credit. He was.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of wide shots.
At least for like a couple of those wide shots, he was like, hey, good going there, buddy boy.
Oh, I did like the throwaway joke when they're looking for the oil. The main thing is Vivian getting the spike through his head. But then when it does the wipe,
spike in my head.
It does the wipe and it spins and it comes back and they're just knocked all over the floor. And Vivian throws up.
Oh.
It's another meta moment, but I never noticed how much Vivian throws up.
He does fall right in line under the dictator, though.
Oh yeah, well he liked the chance to commit violence.
Yeah.
But then when the episode ends, the credits go up and you just see him stumbling around.
Yeah.
And then the final line throws away almost all of the episode.
By the way,
I lied.
It's a complete lie about the oil.
Complete lie about
That's
the oil.
it. It's like, and every time he does that, I'm like, why did we watch half of this?
But the funny thing is that like even before the credits start, Rick says something that I can't think of right now, of course, when I need it. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden it's like the credits roll. I'm like, wait.
That's the Devil Woman. It's like,
oh my God, that's right. That's right. And all of a sudden, boom. Done. Done. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like they run out of time. I always feel like they end because they just lose interest. It's like the first one is like, there's a plane going to crash on us. There's no footage of a plane. There's no special effects of crashing. It just cuts to black and a sound effect.
It's just those two pilots sitting there going, I think we might crash.
Well, there's an episode coming. I think it's in season 2. We'll get to it when we get to it. But there is an episode where the house goes back in time. And then they say, how are we going to get out of this? And they say, who cares? And then the credits run. And that's the end.
Oh, my God. There's so, you know what? It's funny because like there's so many different things that like sometimes I'm like, oh, my God. I remember one time just saying to like a coworker of mine at work. And I was just like, they were talking to somebody, like they were going to do a live event and stuff like that. Right. And I was just like, oh, are you going to talk to, so-and-so? And I said, yeah. I said, oh, tell him Howie sends hugs. And like all these like different little lines that I'm like, Howie sends hugs. Where the hell is that from?
That's Emma Thompson.
It's Emma Thompson. It's the young one. It's Bambi. Yep. And we'll talk about that in a few weeks. But, oh my God, it's just like there's so many like little different nuances of jokes that I remember from this show that it's kind of like, where did that come from?
How John had that in your back pocket, right, ready to go, John.
Oh, I rewatched the whole series when we decided to do this, so it's fresh in my memory. But I am rewatching every episode as they go. So, Michelle, since we're at the end of the episode, what was it like watching it again?
I thought for a second when I got this assignment that I might be too old and I might not think it was funny anymore. And I was wrong. It was great.
Excellent.
Yeah,
I was right all along. It was funny.
Some things do hold up, and to put it full circle, probably once a month, I go on Disney Plus and just start watching the Muppet Show, and it's always great. It's always great.
Yeah.
Some things, or like 90s Simpsons. Like my sons are still really into Simpsons, and every time they choose, I just go below season 10, and it's always as good.
I have this stupid thing that I don't even know if it's a game or whatever, but I'll watch an episode of, let's say, South Park, and I'll say, if I don't laugh during this episode, I won't watch the next one. And I wound up 3 hours later, like, I got to go to bed.
Nice.
Yeah, I have that. My older son is watching it a lot on his phone, but it'll appear on my Apple TV. And it's just every time I go on Apple TV, it's just like a different picture of Cartman. And I'm like, he just keeps going and going and going.
It doesn't stop. It's like getting punched in the stomach. It's the same thing as Bob's. I'm like, I'll only watch. I'm going to watch this one episode. If I don't laugh, then I won't watch the next one.
I love Bob's Burgers. I feel like I'm behind though. I feel like I haven't seen much of this season.
The good thing about it, like all of it, like Rick and Morty, is that they'll always be there, and they really just don't jump the shark. They just don't. And just when you thought that Bob's Burgers jumped the shark, it big fat did not.
Yeah. I'm caught up on Rick and Morty because Rick and Morty takes like 2 years off and then just 10 episodes. So that's a lot easier. I was just reading, speaking of Rick and Morty, I was just reading a book about the MCU, and they were saying like how many people they stole from Community and Rick and Morty. And like Dan Harmon worked on one, and there was an interview with Dan Harmon where he said he's like, you get to the point where you want to fight Kevin Feige in the street, but he's just going to be so nice and go, oh, what a wonderful fight this is. But there is like almost everyone like writing a script for Marvel worked on Rick and Morty, and like and everyone that was in Community has shown up in a cameo.
But you go to who you know. You know how they work, right? It's just Adam Sandler does the same thing, right? You just pick on the people who you know they'll do the thing that you want them to do, and every single time, and that's who you choose. That's why you keep inviting me back, Joe.
That is why I keep inviting you back, and that's how I started watching the young ones, because I was already in Blackadder, and every single person is in both.
See,
Michelle, it's so nice to have you back.
Always.
I'm so glad we got a chance to talk about this.
This was awesome.
Since the implosion of Twitter, a lot of people aren't pushing their social as hard as they used to. But is there anywhere you want people to follow you? You had a TikTok, right?
You know how I'm hidden on social media. Just find me on this podcast.
Same way.
Listen to me on this podcast, or re-listen to the Caffeinated Comics podcast. That's where I do my favorite stuff.
I will say, as of the recording of this, we now have a Facebook page for the podcast. Go to facebook.com/oldyoungones, and we will be posting we figured out our schedule. We've been recorded all these before they started launching, but we are part of the Radio Misfits Podcast Network. They will be launching these episodes as audio, and 1 week after the audio comes out, we will be showing the video both on YouTube and on Facebook. So you'll be able to see these as they come out. Howie, is there anywhere you want people to see you, or do you just want to wait?
I am as hidden as Godzilla on Monster Island.
Which seems like not that hidden, because he's 50 feet tall. Yeah. And it's not a big island.
No, it's not a big island. I'm worried about this new movie.
Yeah, we can get into that. Godzilla X.
We will get into that.
Jill was just like, didn't they just do that? I was like, no, that was the one where they fought, and that was 3 years ago. This is the one where they team up.
They're teaming up.
This is with a cute little mini Kong.
Yeah,
yes.
Well,
that's really gonna go well.
The last poster they were running. The last poster they were running at each other. This poster they're running at you, like Batman and Robin.
Oh Christ!
Well, depending on how good it is,
just hope they sell them a crime. Like they have to do detective work.
Well, the funny thing is that like I'm now deprecating a movie that I have not seen yet, and yet
Howie.
I will watch the which go the 60s movies with two guys rolling around in rubber suits going, that's great cinema. So don't listen to me. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about.
First, though. That's where they did it first.
Yeah.
First being loyal. They fight each other, then they team up against somebody else. I mean, like, they're the ones that invented that plot line, for God's sakes.
That's Batman v Superman.
Yes, thank you.
See? You have to go back to the source.
And they give Kong in this episode the Infinity Glove. What's going on with that?
And then he snaps and Mothra disappears.
Oh
my God.
He's
all that's left of the two little twins.
Turning into Iron Man.
You remember the two guys from the Black Adder who were just like, oh my God, who wrote this? It's just like, oh.
If you start to get technical, they are misfits, right? They are mutants. Maybe there is another X-Man in there.
Oh, and you know what? If we're going to talk about good things, oh my God, the X-Men 97 series on Disney Plus.
Oh, you're raving.
Phenomenal. They took, it's kind of like the new season of Beavis and Butthead or Picard season 3, where they took this old thing from 30 years ago. They did it just like that, but they removed everything that was lame about it. Because we were all in college when the X-Men was on, and I watched it every week, but I thought it was cheesy. And I was like, oh my God, this is what millennials think the old show is. It's
I like to think about that like myself. Like I took myself in the 90s and I took away all of the geeky bad things. And then
yet you're on this podcast. On this show. Wait, no, before the show started, you were being different kinds of black corn rim glasses. There's no way you're getting out of geekdom.
That's right.
Well, thanks again for coming on, Howie.
Thank you so much, Michelle.
Thank you, Howie. Thanks, John.
The next episode,
this is great.
The next episode will be boring, and
will be.
Yes, I'm telling you now. I'm gonna put no effort into it.
This is gonna be.
Thanks for the warning.
The title of the next episode is boring, which is actually
so bored.
A great
it's
one. And
so boring, John.
And I'm very pleased to announce our guest for that episode will be Late Night with Colbert writer Mike Brum, who is a good friend and hilarious in his own right, and said it would be an honor to talk about the young ones. So, guys, return to us 2 weeks for that episode, and until then, just keep watching this one over and over again, and watch the young ones for free on YouTube because people pirate them.
Because we may not be the young ones.